What's going on, gardeners? It's Saturday, September 4th, and today I'm going to show you all how to prune a large mature avocado tree for low branching and small compact size. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated. When it comes to growing fruit trees, the old adage goes, the first year they sleep, the second year they creep, and the third year they leap. And there's no better illustration of this than my Lila avocado tree right here. It is on its third season and it has absolutely exploded in growth this year. And believe it or not, this is actually a semi-dwarf variety. And on its third season, it is already topping out near its mature height. In fact, I'm going to put a side-by-side comparison as to what this tree looked like last year on its second season, just so you can see how much of a dramatic difference in growth there is between last year and this year. But before I can tell you how to prune an avocado tree, you need to understand when, because it's different than most fruit trees. We're used to pruning most fruit trees in the dormant season, which is the winter time for the vast majority of us. Avocado trees, on the other hand, are different, and that's because they come from the subtropical highlands where there's not a big temperature difference between the winter season and the summer season. These are evergreen trees that grow all season long, so there is never a dormant season when the sap flow doesn't occur for you to prune your tree. You have to prune the tree while they're actively growing. Plus, there's a second problem with the avocado tree that most of us aren't used to. The avocado tree, for the most part, most varieties will flower sometime between Christmas and Valentine's Day. This tree flowers for me right around February 1st. So if you were to prune this tree in the winter, you'd have a big problem because you'd be cutting off all of the new wood for the season, and that wood is going to have the flowers on it. So if you prune this tree in the winter, you won't get any budding because you'll cut off all of that budwood. Therefore, you have to prune your avocado trees significantly before flowering so it has enough time to regrow all of that new budwood. And for the overwhelming majority of us, the best time to prune an avocado tree will be right after your harvest. And most varieties are going to have ripe fruit for you somewhere between June to September, depending on what you're growing. So for me, today is September 4th. This is about the ideal time for me to prune my avocado tree because I expect this to flower in about 5 months, and I want to give this tree 5 months to put on new budwood. Now, my situation here is a little bit different because I live in Zone 8A, North Carolina, and this is a 9A minimum tree. I have to grow this under significant protection or it will not survive long term in my winters. And for that reason, I need to heavily prune this tree, and I need to fully account for the growth at the end of winter. This tree may need protection all the way up to mid-March, so I have to look 6 months into the future at how big this tree is going to be. So I need to chop this tree down far below what my maximum limit will be so I can accommodate for 6 more months of growth in order to protect this. So I'm going to have to give this tree a significant haircut. So if you're like me and you're pushing your zone, trying to grow a really cold hardy avocado that needs occasional protection, you will need to be a little more aggressive with your pruning to compensate for the new growth throughout the winter. In order to protect my tree, I built a little hoop house around this tree. You can see all of the PVC conduit on the side. I can use that as a little structure in case I need to throw some agricultural fabric and some blankets over it on the coldest of nights. And on my little hoop house structure here, I marked a 5-foot mark and a 4-foot mark, and this in the center here is a 4.5-foot mark. So I want all of my pruning to fall somewhere in between this 4 and 5-foot mark. That way, I will be able to compensate for any additional growth of this tree throughout the winter. I'm going to use 2 tools for pruning. I will use the recently sharpened pruning shears right here for very small growth when I'm cleaning the tree at the end, but the overwhelming majority of the cuts will be made with this amazing Japanese saw, and I will be using the fine tooth blade on this Japanese pull saw in order to make most of my cuts. But before I begin pruning, I want to give you 2 very important tips. The first tip is that when you make your cuts, try to make the tree as level as possible on top. And that's because fruit trees, well, really all trees, grow by the concept of apical dominance, which means the most growth hormones collect at the tip buds on the highest branches of the tree. So when you make your cuts very level across the top of the tree will grow evenly. If you make the tree uneven and you leave some spots higher than the others, they will get most of the growth hormone in their apical buds, and that is a no-no. The second tip that I need to give you is don't be afraid when pruning. These trees are incredibly vigorous, so even if you over prune, they will grow back. So don't be afraid to make aggressive cuts on this tree to give it the low form that you prefer. And before I start cutting this tree, I just want to give you a quick walk around so you can see how much of a beast this tree is and how thick and lush it is. It looks absolutely amazing, and you can really see just how dense it is in here. This is where I made my pruning cuts last year, but right there is where I made my pruning cuts. So these new big branches, they are all the new branches of the tree, and they have a pretty impressive caliper. So a lot of these branches are going to have to come out because they're very close to the house. And you can also see where I had more cuts made last year. This right here is where all of my pruning jobs were. This is where I headed the tree last year. So everything above that is all new, amazing growth for the season. And here we have our heavily pruned avocado tree. Some of you might now may be horrified thinking, I cannot believe what you just did to that big, beautiful tree. But you have to remember a few things. Again, this tree will not survive here throughout the winter without protection, so I have to keep this tree as small as possible, and these hard prunes are what I need to do in order to keep it alive. And the second thing is, I'm pruning this so early in the year that it will have plenty of time to grow new wood that will be the fruiting wood for the next season. Now I want to take you in for a closer look. And here's a close-up of the avocado tree. The first thing I want you to notice is how open I prune the center. I want as much light to get into the center as possible, and that will help when it comes to fruiting time for the avocado. The other thing that you'll notice is that all of these cuts that I made on this tree were all made at almost exactly the same height. You could put a level on this tree and it would come back looking pretty halfway decent. And that's because I don't want any part of the tree to grow asymmetrically. I want the whole tree to stay roughly the same height. The third thing that you'll notice is I cut almost all of these big cuts right here on an angle. And that's because I want the water to drip off. I don't want any water to pool on here and cause rot at these tips. Now I'm going to have about 3 or 4 dry days, and I want the wood to heal over right here before I go ahead and get any kind of rain. So doing this with a little bit of dry weather, probably not a bad thing. And the final thing I want you to notice is that I tipped almost every single branch. Even the branches that were not really in the way or too tall, I cut down to size. I cut a few inches off, and that's because when you tip a branch, it branches out in all different directions like this. You take one branch, you cut it, and it branches out like this. And when you do that, you will get more fruiting wood on the tree later in the season. So all of these locations that I cut, they're all going to branch out into 2, 3, 4, 5 branches. And all of that will be where the flowers will form next winter. So although it looks like I took a massive amount of wood off of my tree, and believe me I did, the tree will actually have a lot of fruiting wood that will grow over the next 4 to 5 months until it's time for my baby to flower. And it's really going to shock you how fast this tree is going to recover. All you have to do is hit it with a little bit of fertilizer, and then I'm going to add some compost to the bottom, and then I'm going to chop up all of these leaves and all of the wood here, and this is going to be my mulch that is going to decay over the next 6 months. And the avocado tree is going to be so happy because they need an intense mulch layer underneath. It's Wednesday, September 22nd, and I want to show you how this tree has responded to the pruning. I've since given it a heavy feeding of a soluble high nitrogen fertilizer, as well as we have received 10 inches of rain. And the first thing that you'll notice is the branch tips that I did not prune have all new light green growth. These are all new baby leaves, and they are looking fantastic. As for the branches that I did prune, they are also breaking out into all new growth. You'll see growth there. You'll see growth all along the branches here. Growth all along the branches here. They are all showing buds within 6 inches of where I pruned. And then you'll see more branches that I tipped. All of those tipped branches are showing brand new green growth that you can see right here. Even the larger branches are showing all new buds coming out just below where I tipped. Everywhere you look, you see nice new green growth forming on the tree. And this is precisely why you do not have to be afraid to prune your avocado tree. You don't have to worry about pruning them hard because they come back very quickly with all new buds, and it will recover in a dramatic fashion. And come winter, this will be loaded up with new full leaves, new branches, and new fruiting wood that will flower for me. So again, do not be afraid to aggressively prune your avocado trees to manage their growth. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is how you prune an avocado tree for low branching and a short form. And remember, this is a Lila semi-dwarf variety avocado that, if left unpruned, will typically grow to be about 10 to 15 feet tall. If you're growing a full-size avocado variety, which is the majority of them, they can grow up to being 30 feet tall. So you will have to be even more aggressive with your pruning if you want low form and a more compact size with a full-size avocado. But don't be afraid to do it, because when done properly, you'll still get plenty of fruit, especially when done at the proper time of the year. Timing is everything when it comes to pruning your avocado tree if you want to give it enough time to flower and fruit for you the next season. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do, and hit that bell notification so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden, they're all linked in my Amazon storefront down in the video description. Check out my spread shop too for custom made merch. Thanks again so much for watching, and we hope to see all of you again on the next video. Hey Dale, we're going for a car ride, buddy. We're going to get to see the grandparents. Are you excited? He's all medicated with this Serenia so he doesn't get nauseous. We don't want Dale riding the vomit comet. Dale. Dale. Dale, are you ready to go, buddy? Time to go for a car ride.